All right. Mr. Andrew,
Oh,
thank you again. Please continue.
okay. So I was talking about understanding the power of knowledge. Yeah?
Mhm.
If you think about one of the greatest investors in this world by the name of Warren Buffett.
Can you mute Joyce, please? Joyce, can you mute yourself? I'm so sorry. Some people are still coming in, so that's why this happens. They don't know they have to mute themselves. Yeah.
Okay. No worries around that.
Yeah.
So saying one of the greatest investors in the world, who is Warren Buffett, he keeps saying that the first philosophy or the first rule of investments is, he says, the best investment you can ever make in this world is an investment in yourself. So in other words, he's trying to tell us is knowledge is very powerful. If you come from a religious point of view, it goes ahead and tells you that people perish due to lack of knowledge.
Please mute yourself. Francisca.
Do we have an option to mute everyone except the speaker?
Yeah, I think we have that. So sorry.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, nice to see you.
Same here. Thank you, Rhoda.
Sorry for the distractions.
All right, yeah. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is the fact that Emeka and Rod have come up with this platform where they bring people who have specialized in different areas to share their insight with you is something that is so powerful. And I think very few people in this world will actually appreciate the essence and the value out of this. So that's why I had to start by commending you by doing this, pulling different Africans from different parts of the world to come and gain the value that we can gain out of this.
Thank you.
So yeah. So what I'll be taking you through today, I am certain that most of you sort of have a feel, especially given that about 2 weeks ago, you had someone from West Africa come to talk to you. And the introduction that Emeka has given is that today we're getting a view from the East Africa. Now, what I'll be taking you through is something that is absolutely different, but it's so powerful, I can guarantee you, because I've put this thing into practice in the last 2-3 years, and I'm starting to see real change taking place. And what I'm going to share with you today is there are certain truths which have been hidden from us. And without realizing those truths, we end up struggling a lot in life without realizing that we're being misled somehow. Okay? So as I approach this one, I want you to think of a tree. If the roots of a tree are rotting up, will it make sense for you to keep trying to fix up the branches which are drying up? It will not make any sense.
No. Right.
Now, that is precisely how the world of financial literacy is trying to sort out the issues, replacing the branches. And I understand where they're coming from, because that's what is taught in our education system from, people who specialize in financial advising and the subjects around that. But through the experience that I've had over the years, and also given the knowledge that I've also acquired in school, I can say that experience has taught me so much more than the education background that I got. And so that led me to a quest where I just kept feeling something was not right. Something was just not right. And like, they say that when you're seeking the truth, eventually it just shows up to you somehow. And so what I'll be taking you through are things you've probably heard from different subjects, but what will be different this time is that I'll be able to pull all these things together in a way that it's going to be an eye-opening to your minds, and you have that moment of, now this makes sense. So what I'm trying to tell you here today is that you are not aware that since you were born, somewhere in the middle of your mind, there's a bulb that was switched off. before you realized who you really are. And that bulb has been off. And because it's been off, you think you have been in control more often than not in your life, but that is not correct. So today, what I'll take you through is not just a foundation about why so many people struggle when it comes to personal finance wellness, but it's also going to open up your mind to so many other things. And by virtue of doing that, what I'm saying is that I'll be switching that bulb on. So my recommendation to you is, I want you to pick all the knowledge you have about personal finance, and I want you to place it literally on your left arm. Just hold it here and let your mind be blank. I want you to come from a point of view where your mind is blank, all right? And what I'll ask you to do is, as I take you through this, the only person within you who's allowed to give you feedback is your inner voice. That inner sense. Let that be speaking to you based on what you hear today. And then at the end of my presentation, I'd like you to hold what I've taken you through on your right arm. And I want you to look at them basically and say, between these two, which one makes sense for me? So you can decide to pick the left side or the right side, or you can do a combination of those two, whatever fits you, and run with that, okay? But like I've mentioned to you, given my experience, I am starting to see real change happening in this. The programs that I ran back here at home are starting to cause sort of a disruption around this industry. And that is because of that awareness, all right? So without further ado, let me quickly just give you an introduction about myself. So in terms of my education background, it's a combination of actuarial mathematics, financial management, derivatives, and risk management. I know Emeka wrote to you and told you that I'm a financial advisor, but I never advise people in finance. I'm actually a risk management. That's because I don't believe in advising people. I believe in empowering you with the knowledge. And then from the knowledge base you've understood, now we can discuss on what's best for you, right? Because I've come to understand that financial advisors, more often than not, and it's not in a bad way, it's what they're taught to believe is the right way of approaching things. By virtue of doing that, they miss out a lot on the end, and that does not optimize what can come out of you, but vis-a-vis why you're going to them. So my experience is 16 years in the corporate world in the finance space. So I've worked in the pension, insurance, banking, CRB, and the securities exchange. So I left employment about 3.5 years to venture into my own things. So on a very full-time basis, I consult on risk management space. But at the same time, I went ahead and created another company, because from the day I started working, something just didn't sit right with me. I started by doing the valuations of pensions through actuarial science. And I used to get shocked because I had the view of the data in terms of the people who are retiring. And I believe when I speak of my country, it's a reflection of what's going on across other African countries. And I just couldn't understand how people work for so many years and end up getting such small amount of money at their retirement. It kept puzzling me. Then I moved to the insurance space and I realized how blind people were to the subject of risk management. You tell someone to deposit something small yearly in case something happens to them, and they see that as, I will have used that money probably to do something else. Then the unfortunate happens. Maybe you get an accident, your house burns. That's when you start realizing, I wish I took that policy. Then when I went to the banking space, this now really shocked me a lot. I've come to a point where I realized the profession who are the poorest in managing their own personal finance are actually bankers. Yet, since I was small, when it comes to financial literacy, I could see the world going to bankers to educate them about money. So we make a false assumption that because they're handling our money, they understand it. But what's happening is, by virtue of them being around this industry, because of the benefits that come by you working in the banking space, it has a psychological effect that you tend to forget you're an employee. So if you're taking a loan, it's easy to access it. Money is just around you. And that gets you to a comfort zone where you actually think that will be for the rest of your life, it will continue that way. So it becomes a very big shock for people who leave banking, because once you leave banking space, you automatically become a normal citizen like anyone. Then I moved to CRB. CRB opened my mind in terms of credit. I could see how people borrow money to actually use it on liabilities. And then they end up wondering why things go south if something bad is to happen. And this made me understand people did not understand the power of debt, okay? Just like so many countries also do not understand this. And then so when I went to the Securities Exchange, it opened up the door for me to realize in terms of investments, like the bond market, the stock market, and things like those ones. So for instance, I'll surprise you, in Kenya, our stock market is controlled by foreigners, 80%. That means the locals only contribute to about 20% of that. Wow. And you will see the CEO going to seminars and speaking with pride about that. And to me, it really used to, it used to surprise me a lot. Like, if foreigners decide they're not coming back here, or they want to pull out, what happens to this market? Why are you not doing something to empower the locals or the Africans so that we have this market, take off?
Andrew, and so, hold on real quick, please. What you just said now is really, really annoying, or should I say disturbing, for our own countries, for this to be happening, and as you explain this, you are going so deep that I would probably have to interrupt as we go so that it would settle on people's mind. Let me call up somebody who is very knowledgeable in this, and he will talk a little bit about it. Sylvester, I'm talking about you. Did you just hear what he said? You're mute. You're mute.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Emeka. Like when you said, when Andrew said this thing about bankers being the least disciplined in the personal finances, I don't want anybody here to think you're just making up a story. I was in banking for 7 years in Kenya. And you can imagine, by the year 2000, you just graduated out of college. And within your first 6 months, you know what credit cards were in the year 2000 in Kenya. But within your first 6 months, you're 23 years, 24 years, you have access to a credit card of 5,000, right? You're given that straight away. No risk assessment because you're working in the bank. And I started in cash, and I would look at the account balances of all the level C managers, yeah? That is chief something, COO, chief something, CEO, MD, all those guys. Very few of them had less than $500,000 in overdrawn accounts, because you can access whatever you want, right? And then it is so crazy that you say that, and a lot of people don't understand.
Correct.
Just how much these people are addicted to debt. Actually, it's an addiction. Yeah. To debt, not credit, debt. Okay. I want to stop there.
How about the foreigners that he said? Most of the big money is owned by foreigners. Can you believe this? Like,
yeah, that's disappointing.
That's not good news. Sylvester, do you know anything about that?
Actually, that is a very, how do I want to put it? It is sad, but it's how the financial system is structured. A lot of all this financial, all the stock markets, the big part of the market is on what is called derivatives, where an investment institution or a strong institution is buying the primary debt or is buying the primary assets that you have. And actually the reason you see the foreigners controlling much of it, it's structured in a way that the highest bidder wins, the guy who bids highest, the guy who will give the highest returns. And that is how these people wait for the locals. Actually, all the marketing and all the structuring is done by the locals, right? After the locals have done it, they just give them a markup and take control, and then they harvest all the returns. And that is why you see that every quarter or every half, okay, March, June, September, and December, if you pay very keen attention, 15 days to 30 days after the end of those quarters, there's usually some shock in the local currency. The shock comes from foreigners moving profits away from Africa to their countries. I think Andrew will talk more about that.
I know you'll talk more about it, but the reason why I stopped is for you to just think about what he just said, because Andrew could talk, but if you don't catch it, you won't catch it. Okay, so in case for those people who want to ask questions later, remember this part. Okay, and let me also say this. I think that's why China has a big input in Africa, and why they're screwing with us real good. But I don't want to. This is a recorded conversation, so I want us to continue. So please, Mr. Andrew, continue.
Thank you, Mecca. Thank you, Sylvester. And now remember what I told you from the word go. You think in control, but the other people who are really in control. And so what Sylvester's just mentioned is actually heading in that direction. Okay, so that awareness is what I want to focus on today, because that now becomes where we switch this bulb on. All right, so that's a bit introduction about me. So as I start this, today is just about mindset. That's what I want to focus on today completely. Now, I want you to look at these 6 quotes I've come up with, and I'm going to repeat this slide later on. And what I've noted is, if you go through what they're talking about or the statements, there's a sense you're going to get on a face value of what each this statement is telling you. So I'd like you to compare this then after I've finished up with my presentation and I bring this slide back. So the first one says, as a man thinks, so is he. The second one says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Number 3 talks about my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Okay, that's starting to point out exactly what Sylvester just talked about. All right, we are not aware about what's happening in those periods of those markets. We don't question why there's a fluctuations in our markets. Something is going on there. We lack that knowledge or that understanding. If we understood that and we questioned ourselves, then we come from an informed decision making, right? Then 3, teach a child the way to go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Then 5, and this is the theme of my presentation, the human mind is the last great unexplored continent on earth. It contains riches beyond our wildest dream. The reason why I've underlined the word and explode, it's because it's that switch I'm talking about that is off. And by the end of this presentation, I want it to be on, okay? Then finally, when you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change, okay? Now, I want to start off with some data. And I'm sure most of you are going to appreciate that in the last century, oil has lost its position in terms of the most valuable commodity, and data has actually replaced it. Okay. Now, what I learned in actuarial science basically was to use numbers to try and predict the future. So what actuaries basically do is they take numbers and they try to analyze the past of what has happened. And what you realize in life is that there's always a cycle in everything, even in investments, whether you're talking about the bond markets, you're talking about the stock market or whatever market you want thinking about. If you have data in the past, it always tends to create a certain cycle. And once you understand that cycle, then you make assumptions about the future. So you might say, I'm going to assume the same things are going to happen. And therefore, you're able to predict when the market is going to be up or down, and then use that knowledge again to know when to get into the market and when to walk out. So that from around 2000, I started changing drastically. And that's why you see, artificial intelligence taking up or rapidly changing this world, because artificial intelligence is just doing the same thing. You have these machines that are just collecting data about you. And with each data that they're picking up, they're able to understand you properly to a point where now they're able to predict your character. So they can predict, even if I bring this product to you, you're not going to resist. And that's why you find these guys of Mark Zuckerberg always been called upon because of misuse of people's data, okay? So data has become so powerful. Now, I want to bring out some statistics, some research that I did. I did not want to accept anything I found on Google because I know back at home here, we have people who love forming, NGOs in the name of doing certain things, but behind the doors, what they're really looking for is just making a buck out of that. So I said, I'm going to form my own research. So what I did when I retired is I went up country in Kenya and I targeted the retirees, but I was biased. So I looked for those who had, very well-paying jobs and they used to work. So you're looking at the likes of the pilots, CEOs, and people like that. I wanted to get a feel about how they're proceeding on with their financial wellness. Now, what you see on your screen is the results that I came up with. So 95% of them were actually heavily relying on their pensions and upkeep from the children. And this really surprised me because these are the people who are making the big bucks during their days. So what happened, all right? So as I spoke to them, I realized that it was not even a concern to them anymore because there's nothing they could do about that. So they had accepted their fate, that was water under the bridge. However, their concern was the working nation who they referred to as our children. And they said that we can see you as you're working, you are heading in the same direction that we took. And every time we try to warn you or advise you, you either don't listen to us or you think we're trying to interfere with your personal finances. And so we try up to a certain point and then we just feel helpless and we leave you alone, okay? And that created an interesting view for me. So I decided now to do a second research, just a small one with the working nation. So that's me and you. And basically, there are two questions that I asked in my research. And I'm going to pose this question to you to think about it. And the question is, the first one is, given your understanding today about, finance, personal finance, whether it's investments or entrepreneurship or how to handle money, given the knowledge that you have today, if you had that knowledge before you started working, how different do you think your life will have been today? And this sent, shocking. I could just tell from the expression that there's a regret in them because 100% of them responded by saying that I will have been very far. They're not even talking about far, underline the word very far. And Sylvester talked about like when he joined, you get that credit card of this amount of money, okay? So that is something also we will be handling today. That's why this regret comes into people. And so that triggered the second question why I asked them, and given that you've learned whatever it is you've learned so far, what is it that you're doing or have you ever done to ensure that your children gain that knowledge before they start working? And this is when I realized something until I came up with this truth that has
Oh, Andrew, are you there? I think the internet has showed itself. Uh-oh. Andrew, hold on. Let me call him. So sorry, guys.
Well, he's in Africa. Now you understand the African internet.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me call him. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, as Emeka tries to get Andrew.
Yeah.
I think what Andrew is saying here is just like life-saving, you know. It's good to see it from somebody else's perspective.
No
Oh, he's back? Okay. Yeah, and you will find that
we're discussing Sylvester is talking. Yeah, okay. No problem.
Yeah.
Continue. Okay.
All right. Yeah, so you will find that I really lately I'm really getting used to this word addiction, because I'm taking a lot of time to read on habits and the way you create your own habits. Because what is so impressive is that Andrew here is not just talking about money, he's talking about the base of our brains, where our minds are formed, the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And this is where this is the seat of all emotions. Yeah. Like just to pivot a little bit, if you think about this thing we are so used to now, this little gadget called a cell phone. I was talking to a friend a few months ago, maybe like it's 3 months ago. And this lady was saying she took away the phone from her teenage daughter who could not just focus on her studies. And she took away the phone for 2-3 days. And the girl literally became almost depressed. And she was like, yeah, she was crazy. And you can imagine
do it anymore. You cannot do it.
Yeah, you can imagine how many years we spent without cell phones and it was not an issue. So what I learned from that is that once people get used to something and somebody has made you dependent on it, you develop the same kind of emotional attachment to these things that addicts develop with whatever substance they are addicted to. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if it's that overdraft you get, it doesn't matter if it's that credit card that you rely on so heavily, because now we are constantly moving from honest patience and hard work to instant gratification. You are like, okay, if I can get this thing today instead of waiting 2 years and getting it without paying a dime on interest, I would rather get it now and pay 200% interest. So you are getting the same thing for 3 times the price. And again, once we are addicted to debt, very few, let me not use the word not, very few of us take time to really understand the true cost of debt that we acquire. Somebody tells you, okay, I'll give you the loan at 5% interest. But is the cost of the debt really 5% interest if you look at the lifetime of the debt? No, it's probably 100%, because if you're taking something worth 300,000, you eventually pay 600,000. That better be a house, because at least it's gaining value. But if it's something like a car, you just dug too deep, you know. Yeah, and because of yes, easy availability of debt is making us make rash decisions, because now we get into things that we could even avoid. They are not necessities, but we are moving luxuries into the space of necessities. And then that's where the mistakes start to occur. I really like that first quote. As a man thinketh, so is he, from King David in the Bible. And James Allen wrote an entire book on that single quote, as a man thinketh. And as you go through that book, you begin to realize that, okay, if you put your life to get started on the basis of consuming a lot of debt, guess what you will be thinking about all the time? you'll be thinking about debt, that's what you will multiply. But if you start thinking about investing and being patient and enjoying the growth of what you are investing, then your mind shifts. You now start, you get into a paradigm shift where you are basically thinking more about how do I grow what I have? And I think a lot of what Andrew is saying resonates with me because besides the side of actuarial science, we have walked the same path. He was in insurance, then he went to banking. I was in banking, then I went to insurance. And it's in those places that you start to see the truth, like the whole truth. For example, you take a loan from a bank, it's a small loan, but you still have to take a life insurance on it. They take a life insurance on you to pay in case you die before you pay the debt off, right? But on that insurance, they own the insurance, but you are the insured, but they own it. So guess what they are doing? They are charging you maybe 6% interest, right? But they're making interest twice because the life insurance you are taking, that is also their asset, which is earning interest on the life insurance side. And so that's why bank-owned life insurance in America alone, I think, I don't remember the figure, but it's something in the region of $4 trillion. All these banks put together.
Did you say trillion?
Yes, in the region of all these banks put together. I just checked the one for Bank of America. I have their financial report here. Bank of America alone has 22 billion. Bank of America, bank-owned life insurance, 22 billion. So they are taking your money, which they are paying you. What is the interest in the banks? We talked the other day, it was like 0.1% interest.
Yeah.
But now they're making like 5% interest on it. But it's your money. But now, how many of us will understand? Of course, Emeka, you understand, you're using this instrument. How many will understand that you can be your own bank, where you can take the same money, instead of putting in your savings account, you can put it in a life insurance account, which is a retirement plan. And now you are getting the interest that they were getting and then giving you just like 0.1% of it. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so it's awareness. This thing Andrew is talking of awareness. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
He's going to join in soon, probably without his presentation piece because of the Wi-Fi going out. He'll probably join from his phone. But here's the thing. There has to be, which is what we are working on here, a better way for us to understand, because as long as we are alive, we are supposed to be improving, not stagnant. What is happening is a lot of people, a lot of us are stagnant. Can you imagine people who are making the same money last year, this year, they're making the same money? How are you supposed to progress when you have recession coming or lingering there? How are you supposed to progress when you have inflation alive and taking that money you used to buy, let's say you used $1 last year to buy a bottle of water or Coke. This year you can't. You have to add more money from what you already have to do. That's the thing. So why not, and this is the fortunate thing here, get the advice on making your money work for you. Remember we had Francisca, right? I know she's probably here somewhere, where she says, look, there are bonds, there are things you could actually put your money in, and it will help you go with the inflation rate, right? Yes, make you something little. I mean, again, you can only put in what you could afford to keep for now. I'm not saying don't pay your bills, but try and be better. If you don't know, nobody knows everything. A lot of the things Andrew is saying, I'm hearing it for the first time. So it's not like I know everything, but I am eager to learn. It's a 1 hour, 2 hour situation every week where everyone's mind comes together to say, look, what are we going to learn this week? And if you see, we are trying to progress in a level where we are learning every week, right? To get better, because I'm telling you, Ukrainians are coming to the United States pretty much for free. We are not going to have that opportunity. I don't think there's anything that will happen in Africa that will make the government say, okay, 100,000 in. It will not happen. So what does that mean? We have to fend for ourselves in our health, in our finance, in our rights to be in this country, our rights to be alive. all right? Our right to own properties, own access, right? Our right to be everything. As soon as you know that, then that's when you start working on, right? This question of, oh, because you have a good credit, you should just go and buy, like you were just saying, nonsense things that will be liabilities. You are not creating anything. You are depreciating what you could get. That is not what we're here. We are trying to grow out of that nonsense because it was instilled in us. You watch commercials on TV, and instead of them to be telling you how to eat as healthy as possible, you have the cheesiest food. And they show you all the meat and bacon and cheese and all salt. Instead of them trying to preserve your body, they are trying to destroy it, but you don't know because you haven't thought in a different way. So this is just an example, okay? So we want to rethink what we are doing, because when you rethink what you're doing, before you make the next step, you say, hey, look, oh, what did Sylvester say? What did Andrew say? Are we making the best decision for ourselves? Am I protected? Because if you're not protected, then you are free to just be gone from this earth without leaving nothing. That we don't want that. We want to be able to live and live well and have something kept for loved ones in general, right? So let's see if we could have Andrew. Andrew, are you back? Let me see.
You're still connecting to audio.
He's connecting to audio. Okay. Did you say he's still connecting?
Yeah, his audio shows that he's trying to connect.
Okay. What?
Yeah, let's give him time.
Yeah.
Just to affirm as we wait, make on what you said, is that there's something about making sense of money. There is this guy, I can't remember the name. He wrote a book, but he runs this series called Everyone Needs a Rabbi. You know, he's Jewish, and he teaches the Jewish intelligence around money. And I think the real power is in resources. What has made Israel really powerful is the Israelites, and the knowledge they use and the attitude they use is available for all of us to learn. We can borrow from them. We don't have to create any new knowledge. We borrow from them, and that's how we can make Africa powerful. For example, a Jew makes deliberate effort. If you talk to them, they'll tell you that a Jew will make the deliberate effort to ensure that every dollar that leaves his hand goes through 5 Jews before it goes into the hand of everybody else. Right?
Right.
So he might ensure that whoever is mowing his lawn is a Jew. He goes to a Jewish store to buy stuff. He probably goes to a Jewish gas station. And then after that, then the money finds its way out. Because what intelligence are they trying to apply here? Money is not too much in its own sense. Money is a lot based on velocity of money. Money is great based on velocity of money. What is the speed at which money is flowing? Even all of us here, if for us, the ones here, if you will just be honest with us, the ones who are millionaires, you will find that it's not because you have $1 million stuck in cash in your bedroom. It's the speed at which money goes through you, the things that money channel through you. And that's one intellectual property those people enjoy, that we can actually borrow and start thinking deliberately. It's not like you are being racist or really that bad, but if I know something Emeka is selling, if I know something Andrew is doing, if I know something Bob is doing, why can't I just make a deliberate effort to talk to this guy, understand what he does, so that we increase that velocity of money from within the system, and then by the time it gets out of us, I have impacted as many people as I can.
Correct.
And it's a really great approach, yeah.
And you are very right in this. You see, we are here, right? Some people are going to take this as just entertainment instead of trying to be serious and rethink about how they are thinking about our future. Some people come to this class, or not class, sorry, this platform every Thursday just to chill. That's not the point. Oh, I see our brother Andrew. Thank you, sir. Let me just finish this real quick. Okay. Now, for those people, you know, I think maybe they haven't something hasn't clicked yet for them to understand that time waits for no one. There was a time I used to think, let me not make this move because I'm too young. People will think I'm making this move because I'm not grown enough. Let me wait. Why wait? Oh, I have to be 30 before I can buy this car or do this investment or talk. I have to be 40 before I have the balls to be able to do this. Why wait? If you know something, work on it. By the time you get to that level, then you'll be a super expert on it. There are some people here who have children, and please, let me say this, it's no disrespect to anyone, but this is the mind frame of what is happening. When I say it, then you see what I'm saying. There are some people here who have children who are able bodies who could teach themselves a craft. But you know what they're doing? They're playing video games, staying on their phone all day, watching TikTok videos, right? But you see a lot of Mexicans who will come out here and with a lawnmower, they'll try to make money for the whole street. When we all know that the Black man is physically the strongest person, right? But because the kids have the liberty of that iPhone, that what do you call this, tablet, they want to sit down and play games and collect coins in the game just to feel good about themselves. We haven't made any money. We haven't made anything. If we could create or get them to say, look, you come out here, forget your pride and stop being ashamed. Oh, people are going to look at me as I'm a cheap person. Yeah, let them look at you as a cheap person. Tomorrow, those people will be working for you. Go out and try to, just for your kid, let them make little money. Little money helps you grow to become bigger. There was a lady who asked me, not a lady, a guy in the gym who asked me a question. How do you do this? How do you do this? I said, look, I don't have $1 million in my account. I don't have to. What am I going to spend $1 million? What you do is you get assets, right? There are watches you could buy. Today is worth $10. Tomorrow is worth more, right? There are stocks you could buy, like Apple stock. Just give you an example. That was 5 years ago, maybe $96. Today is more. But you could also buy like what we've been doing here, real estate. And today, you guys see what, Ryan, can you mute yourself, please? Let's see if I can get Mr. Ryan to mute himself. Okay. Okay. So, but these are different avenues where people could rethink what they're doing. The laptop, the computer, is holding people hostage. It's holding people hostage, and I'm really hoping that with this, it will help us get better. But going back to what I was just saying, somebody was asking me, how could they improve? How could they make money, right? And I said, look, think about this. How do you know how to make 50 cents? So I want everybody to ask themselves that question. There are people here who work, yes, let's say make $20 an hour, right? So that means you know how to make $20 an hour. Your next journey should be, how do I make $40 an hour? You know how to make 20, okay? But do you know how to make 40? If you can learn how to keep progressing and keep making more, then I promise you'll be totally cool. Let me see. Sorry. So we are going to talk about this a lot more, guys, but this is just to spark your interest in thinking. If you want to be better, find a way to do something with your inner mind, not what your employer tells you, right? If you know how to make $50 by yourself or 50 cents, try and make $1. Learn how to make $1. When you can learn how to make your dollar, what have you done? You've solved the problem of making that 50 cents because you know how to make that 50 cents. The next issue is how to make that $1. If you could solve that $1, what else? Then you start working on $2, next to $3. So it's something to think about. Just sit down, think about it, you know, no rush, just think about it. My dear brother Andrew, we are so sorry for what happened, but you know, Africa is nothing new to us and stuff like this. So please continue, brother. And if you could still do your presentation, if you could do the presentation, that's fine. If not, read the presentation out, then talk to us about it. However you want to do it. The floor is yours, please continue.
Okay, please allow me to share the screen.
Absolutely. Sorry. There you go.
All right, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So I apologize about that. As Mecca, you said, in Africa, these are not things that are new to us. So because we've lost quite some time, it allowed me to speak quite fast. So try and keep up with me, but should you feel like you need to ask a question, go ahead. So the point I was making at that point is the research that I did by questioning the working nation, who is you and I. So the first one I told you, the working nation said all of us would have been very far if we had that knowledge before we started working. So that's a pointer towards a regret, or I wish I knew something about that. Then the second one we asked, given that you know whatever it is that you know, what is it that you have done or are you doing to ensure that your children gain that knowledge before they started working? So what shocked me with this one was 93% of the respondents could not answer that question. Why is that? We all love our children. We want the best for them. So you'll expect naturally that if I went through a painful process of learning how to manage my personal finance, then it should be automatic that I wouldn't like my child to go through this very same experience. Therefore, as a parent, I need to ensure that I do something for them to gain that knowledge, because I also wish I had it. And so when you ask that question, it becomes now obvious to them, like, by the way, how come I've never done it? And then some will give you reasons like, that's why I take them to school. And so we'll follow up and ask them, but you also went to school. How come you didn't get that knowledge? And you find like we're trying to create excuses around this thing. And that's when I knew there has to be something going on between this, because to me, this should be something very straightforward. So if you look at the analysis around those two categories of people I interviewed, it actually shows you that it's the 3-generation problems. So we have the seniors who've retired, they're regretting, but they've accepted their fate. They're trying to warn us who are currently working, but we're not paying attention to them. Yet we are also sort of regretting and wishing we had that knowledge before we started working, yet we're not doing anything to ensure that our young ones learn it. So what do you expect in the future? If you project it, it means then the young ones will get to where we are. They're also going to regret the same way as we are. And we are also going to end up where our fathers or our parents are. And we look back and see, we understand now why they were telling us that. So it becomes a 3-generation problem that is passed on one after the other. And so I believe this is a reflection of how all Africans we are. This is the third group where I'm talking to a group of different Africans from different countries, and they all resonate with this. So the question now then becomes, what is the problem here? So I want us to have a look at these two words. I want us to start by communication. What is communication? Why do we call communication a life skill? Not just a skill, but a life skill. The reason why we call communication a life skill is because one way or another, you need to figure out a way of how you're going to communicate to others until your last day. So it's a tool that you use for the rest of your life. That makes it a life skill. Okay? So I go ahead and ask people, and what is money? money is also a tool that you will use for the rest of your life, isn't it? You can't run away from that. So if money is a tool you're going to use for the rest of your life, why is it not a life skill? Why is it not a skill? Why is it not given the importance the same way as we give communication? Why is it that the first day your child is born, you will start communicating to them? You know, Google Gaga, whatever, hi, baby, welcome to this world. All that the child is absorbing in you, and they're starting to learn the art of communication. So what is it that when it comes to money, we don't apply the same logic? Why is it that so many of people in this world, especially as Africans, have this, belief that it's not right to introduce children to the concept of this tool they'll need for the rest of their life? Where did we get it from? And how come we just accept it as the truth and not apply logic to question what's the reason behind why we've been told this? And this is how now I came to realize that this thing was actually done by design. So we say at Dreamers that money management is a life skill, and it needs to be approached with the intensity the same way as communication does, okay? I go back to the introduction where I said, my people perish due to lack of knowledge. So accepting something you're found in this world to be the truth, that does not make it the truth. So we need to step back and ask ourselves, what is the logic? Why were we programmed to believe this way? And we can see the end results of what's happening. We have our forefathers who were seniors. We ourselves were wishing we had that knowledge, and we're not doing anything with our children. So what happens in Africa is we end up producing very smart graduates with zero skills about personal finance. And then we wonder why we're in such a mess that we find ourselves into. So the next point then becomes, when you accept this reality that money management is a life skill, you ask yourself, then how do you build a skill? So you're laying the foundation of a thought process. Remember, the focus of my presentation is the mindset, it's psychology. How do you build a skill? You cannot go pick someone outside there and train them football for 5 days and then expect them to play in Premier League. Any skill is best developed from when you're very young. Mm-hmm. And then it's nurtured as you grow over and over. So I came up with this formula where I said, any skill, specifically the money management or financial wellness skill, has 3 components, and they follow each other in this order: the right mindset, the second one is the right knowledge, and the third one is the right practice. Mm-hmm. Now, what is interesting and is so powerful that you need to take home today is, of these 3 components, the first one, which is the right mindset, contributes 80% of that skill. So if you do not have a right mindset, you can have the knowledge, but you will struggle for the rest of your life because the mindset is wrong. And if you want to prove around that, think about the superstars that you know who are making millions of dollars during their peak, and today they're broke. How do you explain that? They had the money. What happened? It's the wrong mindset. Think about the lottery winners. Statistics show us that about 79% of them end up broke. Why are they ending up broke and they win so much money? It's the mindset. Okay? So there's so much power around your mindset. Actually, what I tell people is financial wellness has a lot to do with your mindset than any other thing. All right. So if you imagine the right mindset is taking up 80%, and these other 2 are sharing 20%. So you can say the right knowledge is 10%. And Andrew, right practices. Yes, please.
This is very deep. My God, you are very freaking right. I just want to tell you that. So before you continue, I just want you to know this is very deep, because as you said this, I was daydreaming about all the people you were talking to us about. I could relate to that mindset thing. All these people have money, But not just that, any skill you're going to be good in. Just like, for example, women cooking food. They don't just start becoming good cooks immediately. They were taught when they were kids. It's like men going to hunt. You don't just become a hunter. You have to learn. These are real facts that I swear to God, I didn't even think about that way. And this has made sense. And, you know, some of us are here. We know what you're going to do. You're going to start talking to your kids. Oh, yeah, come and do this, you know, because this is really, really good. But anyway, please, I just have to say that there. Please continue.
All right. Thank you, Mecca, for that. So again, with this slide, I am going to bring it back. I like that Emeka has actually started seeing where I'm going with this. And yeah, I'm going to come back to this slide after I have taken you through something that is very, very powerful, okay?
Ginika, mute, please. There you go.
Okay, so we're going to come back to this slide after you've understood the concept of what I'm going to take you through. So remember, I told you when I was starting, I want you to hold everything you've been taught here. Have a free mind. Just let your inner voice guide you in what I'm telling you, okay? Now, the focus now, therefore, for me today is actually tackling this first part. And what is interesting is, if we say this is 80% is mindset, then we have the right knowledge as 10% and practice 10%. Now, I want you to sit there and ask yourself this question: where is the world of financial literacy focusing on? And you will realize all these financial advisors come to give you knowledge. So which part are they tackling from these three components? Theirs is here in the knowledge bit. So what has been hidden from us is this right mindset, which is never addressed. And this is where the problem is. This is what I referred to as the root of that tree. So when they're teaching you this knowledge they're giving you, it's like trying to replace the trees. The problem is not the branches. Fix the root and the tree will automatically flourish. That's my message for you. So now we want now to get into this mindset. So there's some bit of introduction I'm going to rush you through for you to start now seeing things differently and why the mindset is very important, okay? So to take you through the right mindset, you need to ask yourself these two questions. Who are you? I ask this question in my classes and everyone just goes blank. And it's so interesting to me that, I mean, is there something that you can do if you do not understand what it is? Can you go put your investment somewhere, or can a financial advisor put the investment somewhere if they do not understand what it is? You're bound to fail, okay? So how come we try to make sense of everything around us before we do something? We want to understand what they are, but we've never questioned who we are as humans. Some of the answers I get is, I'm Rhoda. And I tell people, okay, so you think you're your name. What if we change your name to Jane today? Does that change you? And then you see people scratching their head, by the way. So where did we get this idea that I am my name? You're not your name. Others will start, you know, I'm the founder of this, I'm the CEO of this. You're not your title. So who are you? Okay. And I'm just going to dive deep and just give you the answer to it because of time. So what you need to understand about who you are, I'm going to use the word creation in terms of how the scriptures and other books tell us. They tell us that we were created in the image and likeness of, you can use God, Allah, energy, it doesn't matter what you call it. We all believe that there's a power somewhere outside there that is responsible for everything else that there is. So if that power created you in its image and likeness, what is the interpretation of that message? And this is very key. Is it that that energy, God looks like, resembles how we look. He has hands, a head, or something like that. So to so many people on a face value, that's probably what will come in the mind because of the word image. But that is not correct, because God can take a form that he or she or it wishes. Can appear as a burning bush, can appear as a tree, can appear as a human, can appear, so it can take any form. Therefore, when it says, I made you in my image, what does that mean? So we go deep and ask ourselves, but who is God? At the end of the day, it boils down to God created. So God is a creator. And if God is a creator and he created us in his image, what does that make us then? This finger does not resemble this, it resembles this. So if God is a creator and he created us in his image, we resemble each other, that makes us also creators. This is what has been hidden from us. So he will never interfere with what you create. It's upon you to decide what you're creating. The problem is we have never been able to know that from the day we got into this world, we have been creating. Even to this moment, you're creating something. So that goes ahead and tells you, then how do you create? And by the way, who's a human? A human can be summed up in these three things you see here. So it starts with the soul, it goes to the mind, and then the body. So the rest of the things we can talk about are derived from one of these three. Okay, so I'm not going to touch about the soul, but simply put, you have always existed as a soul before you showed up in this material world. You're existing as a soul also in this material world as a creator. And you're going to exist as a soul even after you check out. And we all intuitively know that. That's why when we lose someone, we normally say, may their soul rest in peace. We don't say the mind or the body. So it is something we know intuitively in us. So I'm not going to touch about the soul because that's spiritual matters and all that. What I want to focus on are these two, the body and the mind. Now, the next thing I need you to absorb is your body will never do anything without instructions from the mind, ever. If I raise my hand the way I'm doing right now, it started as a thought. A thought occurs in the mind. And then that triggers something in the brain, and then the brain triggers whatever it has to trigger for the hand to go up. Okay? So anytime the body does something, understand the process starts from the mind. Now, that tells you then we need to focus so much on the mind, because the body is a substance of the mind, is a subset of the mind. Okay? It's dependent on the mind. So if we come to the mind, then we ask ourselves, as a human being, when you're born, what is in the mind? Or what is this mind? So the secret I'm stealing for you that has been kept away from us is this. When God created us in his image, that means he made us also to be creators in our own way in this world. He gave us a tool to use to create. That tool was not given to any other creation. That tool is called the mind. This is what differentiates us and animals. Okay? So when a child is born, the mind has no information because the mind stores information in it. So whatever the body of that child is doing is a reflection of the soul, purely. And that is why we feel so happy and joyful when we're around these newborn babies. The mind has nothing. So that energy you feel of love is exactly what the soul is all up to. But what happens then as this child starts to grow? So depending on the environment where you're brought up, there are certain things that starts getting fed into it. And remember, the mind is the tool that God gave you to create your reality, and will never interfere with that. So when you understand this concept, you really start paying attention to this tool called the mind. However, if you look in our world today, we are so focused on this body that we've actually lost our minds. So when you hear people saying you've lost your mind, there's an element truth towards that. Because if you learn to retreat back and start looking at this mind, you're going to see how powerful this thing is. And basically, it's the one that's resulting to everything that is happening around you. So we ask ourselves, then how do we create? If we are creators and we're given this tool called the mind, how does it create? So there are three processes that I want to take you through. The first step of any creation starts with a thought. So even God, before he created, he thought about creating the world. So when you think about something, understand today that you have ignited the engine of creation. The second step is you speak the word. So it can be in written form or spoken like I'm doing right now. That's the second step. If you go back, God thought about creating the world and then he spoke and things became. So for him, it's a two-step process. But for us, there's a third process. And that third process is the repetition of the first two. So what you think about so often and speak about, you'll realize it actually materializes in your life. That's a truth you cannot hide from, okay? So I want you to imagine the mindset of a poor person, the kind of thoughts they keep thinking throughout and what they speak. I have no money. I don't know I'm going to get money from. I can't do this. I don't have this. So the thought process is you don't have it. So that sponsoring thought, the thought behind the thought behind the thought is what starts. It's so powerful because that's the one now attracts the reality of your life. And that is why you find so many people who are brought up in the poor background is almost impossible for them to break out.
Correct.
Because the mind has been programmed to believe that they can't. And God said he's not going to interfere with whatever you're creating. So what you're choosing to do, that's the free will. The free will is you're free to choose the thoughts you want. And of course, you know, there are consequences around everything, okay? So that's the first part I needed to take you through as the introduction.
Right.
Now, from there, now we want to understand this tool called the mind. To so many people, when you tell them the mind, they just think of one, you know, substance, but it's actually broken down into two. And this is where now the power of this thing comes into play. So the mind is broken into two parts, where we call the subconscious mind and what we call the conscious mind. The subconscious mind is the part of your mind that reacts. It never ever thinks, it just reacts. It's a habit. It's a belief that is stored there. The conscious part is the one that thinks, tries to use logic and things like those ones, okay? Now, the next thing, and this is science starting to prove this thing outside, is this. The kid, when children are born, between the age of 0 and 7 years, they operate 100% from a subconscious mind. Okay? Stay with me in this, because this is where the bug now goes on. Children between the age of 0 and 7 operate 100% using the subconscious mind. And here's proof. Emeka, if there's a 4-year-old kid who is standing across the road and they know you, what will they do?
Run to me or wave to me.
Exactly. So to them, they're going to react. Oh, there's Emeka. React, let me run through. Because the conscious has not developed to realize or to interpret this is a road. So the interpretation of this is a road, and therefore this means there are cars that are passing, therefore can be knocked down. That's the part of the conscious, the awareness of that. So children between 0 to 7 normally just react, okay? Then after 7 years, the subconscious reduces to 95%, and consciousness takes up only 5% for the rest of your life. So where did this 95% come from? It came from the first 7 years of your life. Now, the problem with the subconscious mind is that it's not something you're aware that is existing, okay? And since we have said that the mind is a tool that creates your reality, I want you to look at this diagram and see the percentage of the subconscious of your mind that you're not aware of. This is telling you that you are creating your reality out of your subconscious mind, which you do not know exists in you. Because you think the mind is one thing, which is consciousness. All right? But what has been hidden is what we're calling the subconscious mind. Okay? There's a tribe that is called something like Jitsu or something like that. They have this saying where they say, show me a 7-year-old boy and I will show you the adult. Can you connect that with what I'm taking you through? Okay, so there's a tribe that understands this secret. What this is telling you is it's very important to focus on the first 7 years of the child in terms of what you actually develop in their subconscious mind, because that becomes what is going to propel them, the habits they're going to form in every area of their lives. So the question then becomes, then how does the subconscious learn in these first 7 years? And this is the trick. In the first 7 years, the subconscious mind learns through repeated observation. So I want you to think of it in this sense, okay? If I bring this,
please hold on. Hey, David, can you mute David and Francis phone? Please, can you mute them? I think they are. And David, can you mute David? I'm a nuisance to me. And iPhone Mary Anderson. Can you guys all mute, please?
What? Yes.
Mary Anderson, can you mute? Can you go on mute?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And I think Mr. Anderson also. All right. Please continue, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So how do we develop the subconscious of a child between 0 to 7? So I have said it's through repeated observation. That is how they learn. That's how the mind starts to learn. Now, I want you to think about the subconscious as a foundation that is being laid out. So the first experience the child goes through leaves a trace. So if this is the subconscious mind, when the first experience of anything happens, it leaves a trace. So it's like a foundation of a building. The second time they go through the same repetition, it actually adds another layer. So the more you expose them to the same thing over and over, it starts forming a foundation of a belief system. Okay? So by the time they get into 7 years, we have said the subconscious reacts. If I come and slap you, Mecca, and you slap me back, that is not the conscious. That's your reaction. That's the subconscious mind, okay? So everything we expose our children to over and over, it starts forming a foundation in each topic, okay? So in that sense, that's why you hear people say, it is not what you tell your children, it is what they see you do. So you cannot be telling a child not to drink or not to do something when you yourself are actually practicing that. What you become blind to is the child is not going to listen to you. Okay, even if you're harsh or something like that, they're more likely to pick the habits they see around you, because that's the observation they see every now and then. Okay, so that's the way I want you to look at this subject. Now, after 7 years, how do you learn then? The way you learn is through what we call the conscious mind. So after 7, if you've been introduced to a new topic that you did not learn in the first 7 years, your mind starts trying to make sense out of that. Okay? And that's the conscious. It's trying to put 1 and 2. Use the logic around this. But as you keep trying that and repeating it, it starts to slide back to the subconscious mind. So think of the first day you learned to drive a car. So the first day when you've been given instructions and you're trying to connect these things you're supposed to do, check out the rear mirror and all these things, you're trying to coordinate all that. That is occurring in the conscious mind. All right, so you're trying to use your conscious to coordinate all these things, yeah? And then eventually what happens?
I'm so sorry. Can you mute Mr. Anderson, please? I'm so sorry.
Anderson, please mute.
Mr. Anderson, can you see it? Andrew, can you mute him? Mr. Anderson, MA. Okay. No. You haven't muted him yet. Uh-oh.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, can you go mute, please? Yeah, I tried to mute everyone. I'm so sorry this is happening. Andrew, can you see it? Can you see Mr. Anderson? If you can just go, if you go to just go to participants, and you will see Mr. Anderson.
I've seen that. There you go.
Okay. All right, please.
So I was saying, think about the first day you learned how to drive. So it's the conscious part that is trying to coordinate all these things, the instructions you're being given. And as you continue and perfecting on that art, it gets to a point whereby it now moves from the conscious to the subconscious. It becomes something you do without thinking. It's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So these days you go to your car, you enter, you're talking on phone and you just drive off, okay? So this is how it was created for us to create anything. So after 7, it starts from the conscious, then sinks down into the subconscious mind, okay? So this is the truth of how we create our lives. Now, to prove to you that this is true, I want you to think about your day yesterday. We say that the body will never do anything without instructions from the mind. So from the moment you woke up until the time you went to sleep, how many things can you recall your body was up to? When you wake up and you're taking a shower, you're not thinking, it's a reaction. When you're brushing your teeth, it's a reaction. And you're taking your breakfast, it's a reaction. But your body cannot do those things without instructions from the mind. So which part of the mind is controlling much of what is going on around you? It's the subconscious mind. Okay? So that is the message I'm sending out today, all right? Now, the next part is, I want us just to quickly go through, how does God talk to us? How does the universe respond to us? This force that exists outside there. I've come to a point where I've realized that there are 4 ways. The first one is through feelings. If you want to know what is true for you in this world, look at how you feel about it. This is why I said initially, the child's body is a reaction from the soul because the mind has not been developed. It has not been programmed in any way. And I told you the mind is what separates us from other creations like animals. So it means animals, when you see the body of animals doing something, it's coming from that feeling, from the soul. That is why when you see the hurricanes happening around, no animal is ever caught off guard. Okay? So that energy connects with them and they can feel something is coming up. But for us, because the mind has been programmed to think of other things, it diverts us to a point whereby we lose touch with that inner feeling. And that's why, taking some time to meditate and, questioning yourself and going back from, coming from within is very important. When we're starting, I heard Emeka talking about the importance of taking some holiday. It's very, very powerful to reflect within yourself because it refreshes you again. I see people taking leave and then going to do more side hustles and they come back to work more tired than when they left. So we are missing again the point around this. So the first one is that feeling. which we call the inner voice or the sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, all right? So if you learn to quiet the outside world that comes from within, you'll start realizing that that voice is always guiding you in the right path. And this sets across all people, all right? It doesn't care what religion you come from. There's always that inner voice that directs us. Then the second one is through thoughts, or things like deja vus, dreams, and things like that. And the third one is the vehicle of experience. If you want your life to change today, start learning from the experiences you've gone through. And if you do not learn from the experiences that you've gone through, don't be surprised when the same experience keep coming back to you. That force will never allow you to proceed on to the next level until you learn the lesson why that experience is being brought to you. And the way I look at it is like a butterfly. If you think about the process of a butterfly, it starts from a cocoon, and there's a way it tries to get itself out of it. It breaks the first wing, the second one, the first leg, like that. Why is it that they have to go through that process? So this being we call God has created the process to be like that because it's trying to strengthen its body such that when the time is right, the wings will be able to handle the atmosphere to which to be flying around. So if you take a razor and you find this butterfly trying to come out of this cocoon and you think, let me assist it, and you cut that cocoon and release it, that butterfly won't last. So what I realized is every experience that I go through, especially the painful ones, is actually God talking to me. He's trying to teach me something. So psychologically, I've shifted from complaining to asking myself, what is the lesson coming here? And I've realized by that simple turnaround of the mindset, I'm able to see what the issues are, what the problem, what is it that I'm supposed to learn? And that accelerates me faster towards the goals that I'm setting. Remember, you are your creator. So when you're thinking about investments and you're saying, I want investments, you've ignited the engine of creation, all right? That's the first process. But now, depending on what you've chosen, this universe starts now moving you towards that direction. So as it's moving you towards there, it's going to bring experiences in your life. The problem is people start complaining. So when you complain, you don't learn. And it can allow you to move to the next step until you learn this, because it's trying to teach you something that is going to help you hold onto the goal that you asked for, or the goal that you wanted to create. Okay.
Yeah, Andrew, let me say this. One minute. So you said when you complain, you don't learn. That's, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but I've never heard that before. That's really, really good. When you complain, you don't learn. We are supposed to learn even when it's hard, even when it seems ununderstandable, even when it seems like it's the worst thing that ever happened. I don't know. Do we have Akin here? Akin, are you here? Francis iPhone. Are you here?
Akin's here.
Akin,
Yes, sir.
do you have something you want to say about that? When you complain, because I know you have a lot of students that you are teaching the cyber security and all that stuff. And it's not easy, right? But you are teaching them a path forward. Do you want to say something about what Andrew had just said? Because this is really deep. When you complain,
You know,
don't learn.
I want to say thank you, Emeka and Andrew, for the insight. I'm just taking notes, man. I'm just soaking it in and enjoying this, really. And one thing that struck me from the onset was when you mentioned you are what you think, you know, for the religious folks who say, as a man thinketh, so is he. So the power, and, you know, I was just thinking in my mind that, you know what, every time I've seen professionals become successful, especially when they decide to transition to something else. In my case, I've been mentoring for many years in different technology space. And my most successful mentees are people that start with the mind, because if you can get a man's mind to shift, everything else just adjusts and aligns. So I really personally I'm just loving this really, because it's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So I second it big time.
Yeah, and this is a topic for everyone. When you are complaining, when you complain, you're not learning. This is beyond African deep. This is worldwide deep. And I guess we'll stop trying to complain, but learn from it. So, I'm stopping him so that you guys can catch this and remember it and use it. So those of us who complain, I'm not saying our wives or anything like that. I'm just saying those of us who complain, we're not learning from the situation. I didn't call any names. But Mr. Andrew, let me just say this. You will have to come back, okay? But please continue. After you're done, then people could ask the questions, because it's a lot of people here tonight. I don't know if you'll be able to answer all our questions, but you will give it a try, okay? Please continue. I know you're almost rounding up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So experience is very powerful, and just to show you how we human race have lost it. Imagine if we learn from the experience of war. Ever since time started, war has never ever done anything positive in this world.
Correct.
All right. So if we could agree somehow that war never helps us, let's stop fighting. What does that mean? It means we don't need the army. How much does the US set the budget for just the army?
Oh God.
If that money is put across the entire world, will we have people starving?
Correct.
So the truth and the reality is, if we do not learn from the experiences, they keep repeating itself over and over. Today we have Ukraine and Russia, because we are not learning. So this is very, very important. That's what I'm saying. God speaks to us in these 4 ways, and they follow each other in this order. So you can see the power of learning from experience. Now imagine if you learn to start listening to your feelings, how powerful that would be. And so the last part is actually the words. And the reason why I said the words is the last one, it's because there's no single day you'll ever speak a word that you're not feeling, thinking, or experiencing. There is no single day you'll ever utter a word or write that does not describe one of these first 3. So words are dependent on these first 3. So unfortunately, what has happened in this world is we tend to pay more focus on the word, such that if you're experiencing something over and over that goes against the word, you automatically discard the experience and you honor the word. So this is something you need to take up, because now this will come when now I delve into the parts of investments. You'll start understanding why we have that cycle of, we put so much money into certain investment that something happens in the market, it goes down. We just don't learn from that, okay? Because the word of what our financial advisors keep telling us. And that's why every now and then you hear about these crashes taking place, and we still don't learn, okay? So that's the foundation, again, I wanted to introduce in this aspect. Now, the next one is a downfall of our education system. Our education system plays a big role in actually creating us struggling with finances. Number one, they don't teach it, okay? But that's not even really the main problem. The main problem that I have with the education system, even across the world, is this. It structures our mind, which is the tool we're given to create, on what to think and not how to think. And the way they do this is there's a study that was done by NASA, and it took children before they started schooling, and 98% of them were thinking differently. Before they went to school, 98% of them were thinking differently. After graduation, they did the same research. Guess what percentage was thinking differently? Only 2%. So the education system turns around the way we've been created to be. Okay? And it starts by schools telling you A is for what? Apple. So it starts to converge your mind into apple, apple, apple. It's telling you what A is. Instead of asking children to come up with names that start with A. So one can say alcohol, another one can say aeroplane. You start diverting them. For any one of you who is doing any business or side hustles, you will agree with me that if you go try doing investments or business with a what to think mind, you'll quickly run back to employment. Because the business world is very dynamic. Challenges come here and there. If you do not know how to think, you're going to collapse. And so what happens is we produce graduates who know what to think, not how to think. So you find someone has a very good degree, but he did not get the job, his dream job. He wanted to be a doctor, but that did not come through. And they end up depressed. Why? Because they were programmed on what to think. With this knowledge, I'm only going to be a doctor. If they are taught how, they will start thinking of, okay, I've not made it as a doctor, but I have this power, I have this knowledge. What else can I use it for? So in Africa, you see these graduates committing suicide because they're not selected and things like that. That's the damage the education system does to us. And without our realization, because that is what was developed from us in the first early stages, that becomes what is the driving force in our subconscious mind. And we do not even understand that. Okay? So you have been programmed to believe that for you to do investments, you need people who have studied these things. That's where I'm heading with this. Without them, you can't do it. And what that does is, psychologically, it makes you feel they're smarter than you. Yeah, we go back and ask ourselves, what did Warren Buffett say? The best investment you can make is in yourself. Why can't you educate yourself about these things such that when you're going to these financial advisors, you're the one who's actually saying, I prefer 1, 2, 3. What are your thoughts? How do you work for 50 years, then you take all your money to someone because they have a certain qualifications? You saw what happened in the United States, for those of you who were there in 2007, the financial crisis, all these experts, what happened? So being structured on what to think is causing a lot of damage when it comes to financial wellness as adults. The other thing is our education system is trying to raise perfectionists. This thing of kids coming home and saying, I was number one when their racing is number one. We are not here to compete. My daughter just turned 4 and I've programmed her mind such that when other kids are saying, I'm number one, she says, it's not about winning. It's about being better. That is what I'm programming in my daughter's mind. And I want you to imagine the power of that as she grows up. Look at our society today. Emeka buys a station wagon. Tomorrow, Rhoda wants to buy a Beetle. Why are you competing? It's something that is going in our subconscious mind, and we're not even aware of that because it was programmed in us to be competing from that childhood of being number one. There's no way we showed up in this world to compete. We came here to experience ourselves, and the best logic would be, today, am I someone better than how I was yesterday? And that's where the lesson of learning from experience comes through. If you develop that mindset, then you remove a lot of negative energy around you. You don't even care what the world is up to. Your focus becomes you. And when focus becomes you, you start developing being better in every area of your life. And life automatically changes for better, okay?
Absolutely. Goodness gracious, that was good. Okay, continue, please.
Yeah. And so when it comes to this now perfectionist, because now if you come number 2, you feel less. You start developing of I'm not the best. That automatically instills fear from a young age in people. Okay. And that goes on and on and on until that becomes the decisions that you're making are based on fear. They're fear-based. So we walk out of rational thinking to fear-based, but we are not aware that we're using fear to make decisions because it's hidden again in the subconscious mind, okay? So that's another problem I have with the education system. And finally, its destiny is employment.
Correct.
They don't really teach us around the concept of making money work for us. If you want money to work for you, employment is not where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be on other areas. So if time allows, I'm just going to briefly mention that. So I want us to have a look about the mindset, and I want us to track an average African from the moment they're born all the way to their old age. And I also want us to track Asians who basically are Africans, okay? And you're going to see why Bob Marley told us, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. We're not even aware that it's there because it's in the subconscious mind. So allow me to use a diagram to explain, to elaborate this part. So if we take this axis to mean wealth, all right? And then what I'd like to do here is I want to have subjects for money. So I'm going to start with spending, okay? I'm going to have, let's say, business. I'm going to have investments. We can have things like savings and the likes like that. So let's look, I'm going to use blue to reflect a typical Black African, okay? So this child has showed up in this world. Now, more often than not, our parents bought into that belief that it's wrong or we shouldn't introduce children to this subject. Now, I want to show you how dumb that really is. Sorry for the word, but that's the best that I can use to describe this. You buy into that, but you're the same person who takes your child to the shop, to the mall. So what do they observe? They see you picking stuff from the shelves and then walking out. That observation, you've changed money with something, is starting to imprint something in their subconscious mind. And that something is which topic from here? Spend. So that's firstly, you took your son or your daughter there. That observation created the first trace that money is for spending. The second time you take them, you expose them to buying, whether it's a mall or whatever it is, you're adding another layer, you're adding another layer. When they watch TV, radio adverts, so we say our children by default are bombarded daily with the message of spending, and this is what forms, because this is what they're exposed to in their subconscious mind. So as we sit back and say it's wrong, we become blind to the fact that by default, or in essence, what we have done is basically handed our children, who we love so much, to the society to actually start imprinting the knowledge of money. And the society will only teach one thing: money is for spending. Okay? That's why we say by the end of it, because we don't teach these things at home, they're not taught in schools. That's why I said in the beginning, we end up releasing graduates who are very smart, but have zero skills about money. But by default, the only thing they know about money is spending. If you take now the Asians, Africans, you'll realize when you go to their shops, you'll always find young people there. What are they doing? So this child is started being exposed. So there's something else in the subject of business that is being built for them. And of course, when it comes to business, investments and savings automatically form. So as they grow up, they have an options to think about this, at least based on what I've written, the 4 topics. So this is what instilled in their subconscious mind. Okay. Now, let me draw now this graph using, let's say, pink. And you're going to see now how damaging this can be. So let's think of this as time. This is, a child is born here. This is 7 years. This is 20. Then I'm going to put something like 30, let's say 55 and da, 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 all right? So an African view then will be, because you say this child is not supposed to be introduced to the money concept, you become blind to what's happening here. So the first 7 years you said are very important, but what has been instilled is money is for spending. After 7 years, you bring people called celebrities, because the teenage level is where they associate a lot with this. What do celebrities show our children? What they teach them is the end result of their success. So they display, you know, big cars, lavish living and all that. So in the first 7 years, our children are taught that money is for spending. Then between 7 and 20, they're taught what to spend on. Because remember, our school is teaching them what to think, not how. So this child graduates and starts a job here. So the moment you graduate, the bank comes and tells you, Sylvester told us, you qualify for a certain loan and you don't need collateral. So this child mindset is what? Money is for spending. So what do they do? They have been shown by celebrities I need a car. That's why most of us fell into that trap. The moment we got confirmed with our first job and the banks approached us, we quickly took the money and bought the car. So if this is wealth, what exactly happens to this graph? It dives to the negative side because it's a loan. But you think now this is the in thing, you don't realize the damage of what is going to happen. So you start to pay, you start to pay your money. Then the bank comes to you and tells you, we are so happy with the you're paying, you can actually top up. So you top up, now you want to travel around and do all those things you saw celebrities doing. You dip more. So around this time is when you're probably settling down with, you know, you're getting married, you're starting to have kids. So these responsibilities are the reality start to face you. And you find yourself now wanting to, I need to be very careful with my money. This is the time we tend to start now looking at money differently. And guess what? Both couples are in the same problem. So now the question becomes, how do we get ourselves out of this mess? So the fear of being fired kicks in because you have all these debts around you. And you look back and you cannot see anything valuable that you did with that money. Okay? So as you continue with your work now, depending on the environment where you are, unfortunately in Africa, it's about who knows who. So you get the scare of rubbing shoulders with the higher B. So you withdraw yourself to a corner because you're fearing, you know, you might speak or you might do something that might rub shoulders with someone and that can lose you your job. So you stay behind, and by virtue of pulling behind, you kill the cells of thinking because you're not activating the thinking to come up with ideas. So my research has shown that these people normally break even around this point. All right, but by this time, because of responsibilities, children are about to start colleges and things like that. You find now when you retire at this point, you tell yourself, I don't see the point of me living. Let me just wait until retirement so that I'm able to get that handshake. So you wait until the point where you retire, you're given the handshake. Now the question becomes, with that handshake, are you making rational decisions or are you being driven by fear? And more often than not, you're being driven by fear because of everything I've talked about. Now, do you have the right mindset about businesses and investments? You don't have it. Do you have the knowledge? You don't have it. So you're trying to think of ideas of what to do, but you can't come up with an idea because this point here, you fried up all the cells of thinking. So what most people like to do here is they go seeking advice from other people. So this is where now the financial advisors really make a big killing from these people, all right? And more often than not, this money where it goes, it actually ends up in the negative because the way it's structured, it's a process. There's no way you can just be successful in any business. You will try a lot of things. you're going to fail. All that experience you're learning. So if you're starting to invest or do business after you retire, do not expect things will just take off. You also have to go through that cycle of up and down, learning. If it's sales, if it's marketing and all that, it's an experience. By the time you perfect this, you've lost your money. This is how my research came to conclusion, and I was able to see why so many of these people who have prime jobs end up, heavily relying on pensions and upkeep from the children. That's why they say it's lack of knowledge and lack of skills. That's what they're telling me. We lost our money through that. Wow. So when they're warning us here, we're not listening and we are not doing something about our children. And so this becomes a 3 repeated generation passed one after the other. And we expect a miracle is going to happen at some point and we're going to be liberated.
Win the lottery. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why Bob tells you, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our what? So the secret is freeing yourself here, up here. So quickly, let's take up the Asians. So these kids here are being programmed here. Of course, they're also being shown spending because that's what the society does.
Right.
But this child is exposed to a point whereby when they're getting to the age of 18, where do you expect this graph to go? This graph will start moving this way. So when you hear, my people perish due to lack of knowledge, you can see where this is coming from. This is why most of these Asians came to Africa with just $100 and they took up all our manufacturers. They took up the space of distribution and wholesale. We Africans are programmed to think of business as the retail end. Well, the money is actually behind. So they came here, they took that, and you have now the Chinese who are coming over, they're also taking over. We're just focused on employment and retail, okay? There is definitely something that we are missing, okay? And we cannot continue doing the same thing over and over and expect that it's going to be different. So this cycle has to be broken at some point. And the idea is, how do we do this? We start this with our kids. Because if we are able to program our children well, then everything is going to fall into place. This is the reason why Africa is the poorest continent in the world. They might have walked away from us, but they left something here. That is why they programmed our forefathers that it's wrong to introduce your children to this concept, okay? That's the basic truth of what I came to discover. And so the whole world I came to realize is structured. You might be thinking that you are in control, and that thought process is happening in your conscious mind. But what is really controlling your life is the subconscious, which was done by design before to program you in a certain way. So now look back at this statement and see the power of it. Now, I've briefly introduced the concept of the mindset, so I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to move now to the knowledge. Now, in the knowledge, I need you to understand that there is what I will refer to as the incorrect knowledge and what I refer as the correct knowledge. Now, if you do not know the difference, you will think knowledge is knowledge. So when you guys are going to these financial experts and they're giving you advice, you tend to believe they know what they're talking about. And that's why I go back to the financial crisis and ask you, how come so many people lost all their savings? How come people committed suicide? It's because you work so hard and you give this money to someone else and you're totally clueless as to where this money is going. And that is why Warren Buffett is telling us the best investment is an investment in yourself. So the message is, even if you want someone else to advise you in terms of where to put your money, the first thing that you're supposed to do is learn, at least gain the basics around what these investments are, okay? When you get that, then you come from an informed point of view. In fact, there's a small research you did recently, and the results are very interesting in the sense that we asked people, if we give you $10,000 to invest and we gave you two options, so A, go invest the entire amount. So let's assume that investment is called something like, let's say Z. Okay. Then option B, we told these people, spend $500 in learning about this investment called Z, and then invest 9,500. 98% of people chose this.
Wow.
And that tells you, our scriptures telling us our people, perish because of lack of knowledge. This guy called Warren Buffett is telling us, invest in yourself. So we trust these people know what they're doing. So we take the money there. Then we wonder why we commit suicide when they fail us. But if you came from this point, even if you lost this money, you'll at least have a reason to know, okay, I made the decision I thought it was the right one. So the next step becomes, what do I learn? I've lost it. Next time you'll become wiser. Okay?
Wow.
So now in this knowledge space, like now let me give you something that might shock many of you. These financial advisors are coming from a school of thought of what they were taught. Okay? Now, when you're programmed with the education system on what to think, it means you're only thinking of A as an apple. So when I'm thinking of investments, I'm only thinking of shares, bonds, the words you hear people talk about. Okay? Now, anything outside this space that can make you good money, you're going to lose out of that. Because these people are following what they learned. So if there's something new happening in the market, and we know the technology, things are really moving fast, our schools, the education system is not able to pick up at the pace at which technology is moving. So the world of cryptocurrencies came across, the few people who have the knowledge understood this is the right time to get inside. Someone who understands the history of money will have gone ahead and bought it. Okay? So I'm saying that when you educate yourself, you're able to see these things beyond what the books teach us. Now, when it comes to financial literacy, the heart of it, since we were kids, we have been programmed to be doing what? To be saving.
Yep.
Saving, okay? I am telling you that is crap.
Oh, yeah.
Today I'm bringing you a new thought, okay?
Yeah.
They've even gone ahead and created what they call piggy banks for kids to instill saving. And I'm not saying saving is bad. What I'm against saving is, why are you saving? Because remember, your mind attracts what you think about. So the driving force, the sponsoring thought in the middle of your mind is save. So the mind says, okay, let's put this money here. But why are we putting it there? I had a friend in Scotland who had saved for 7 years and he didn't know what to do with the money because of that programming. And here is a classic example I want to show you. Here in Kenya, we have one of the financial experts by the name of, she's called Tina, okay, Hicks. This is a website. And she has a lot of followers. People go for advice there. Recently, you can see now what I was talking about, how you're programmed. So when you're marketing yourself, you want to show that you went to London School Business, Oxford is there, I've worked with Morgan Stanley. So automatically, you will be inclined to feel like this person knows what they're doing, correct? Now, that is what I'm calling the incorrect knowledge. The right knowledge is getting something different, which I'll just quickly mention. So she's updated this, our website, and she gives a story about a lady called Sylvia. Look at this. Sylvia saved 1 million on a salary of $600, okay, $10,000 on a salary of $600. So let's use logic now and ask yourself, how much do you think this lady used to save from this $600? Owing to the fact that she has bills to pay. So you'll realize on average, it will be something like, let's say, let's say 20. Yeah, or $200, okay?
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you take the $200 and you divide it by this 10,000. How long will it take for this lady to reach $10,000?
Wow.
It will take her
4 years.
It will
4
take her
years,
over
2
4
months.
years. Exactly. So if it's 4 years, what I'm trying to say here is you have made this lady spend 4 years to raise $10,000. Okay? Has she bought a house?
Nope.
So to buy a house, how many more years do you think we should add from this one?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yet, all right?
Mhm.
And that is just a house. We've not even talked about like paying for, tuition fees and things like those, especially the tertiary level. Okay? So what I'm saying is the financial literacy, the way it's structured or it has been structured, it will make you feel like you're moving in the right direction, but it is not optimizing for you. It is optimizing for others. That's what I'm talking about, the right knowledge. So the right knowledge is stop focusing on savings, start focusing on building what we call assets. This is the secret.
Yeah. And
so every one of you here today, if you tell yourself by the end of this year, I don't care what has happened in the past, but I'll make sure I focus on one asset and make this asset what we call a cash flowing asset. And just focus on that, then can you see savings becomes automatic? Because how else will you get this asset?
correct.
But now the driving force in your mind is not saving, it's the asset. That's what you're seeing. That's what you're creating. That's what you're attracting to your life. So when you create this first one, you will get a sense of peace and pride. It doesn't matter how much I've making out of this, but I've achieved this goal. So next year, let me work for 2. You create next year 2. So by the end of the first year, in terms of using, let's say, the blue pen, you have your first asset here. Here you target 2. It doesn't matter how small they are.
Right.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to reprogram your subconscious mind to move away from saving to naturally start building up assets. So if you do this in the 3rd year, by the 4th year, if you say 2, how many assets will you have after 4 years? So this is 7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now compare this one, compare you here and this lady here. How much do you think you'll have by this time? And remember, if you start learning from every experience here, you will become very wise. And therefore, you can expect the returns of each one of these ones will start just skyrocketing. I promise you, you'll have at least 10 times more than this lady here. So of course, both of you are moving the same direction, but one was structured to benefit others. And I can tell you for free, it's the banks who came up with this idea of saving because they want your money there. But do they keep that money in the bank? No, they go make it work for them. So why don't you surpass the bank and ask yourself, what is it that these banks do for them to get the returns that they get, such that they're able to pay me this small percentage and they make these profits of billions? That's the first thing. A second one that I want to share with you today, because of that concept I talked about, focusing on these people, financial advisors, they miss things which were not taught in their curriculum. In Africa, we have credit unions, we name them SACCOs. And pay attention to this because this is going to shock a lot of you. The banks, when they come to you, they're going to market. This is the interest rate we're going to give you if you save X and Y. Now, what you can see on your screen is the website for the Central Bank of Kenya, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I want to move and share something with you that is going to display the weighted average interest rates that banks give in Kenya. So let's assume you're putting your money in a fixed deposit because they tell you we give a lot of interest there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the average rate you can see here, 6.53. Okay? Now, I want you to subtract what we call inflation for you to see the real value of your money. What they don't teach you about inflation is that currency loses value in time. So if you subtract at Kenya right now, the inflation is at 5%. So if you subtract 5 from this average, you call it 6, it means the real return that is coming to you is just 1%. So if you're saving in a bank in Kenya with the expectation that you're going to come back home and you're going to live comfortably, then this is the reality. You're just lying to yourself. But of course, now when they're teaching you, they start telling you, yes, banks are good. The best bank you can go for is this, the best bank and all that. In the curriculum, they are not taught about credit unions. Now, let me show you how much credit unions gave this year in Kenya. Okay. Can you see this? The highest gave how much? 21%. The top, almost the top 20, all of them were giving a return of 15%. But because the education system does not capture the credit unions or the SACCOs, then the financial advisors, most of them miss it because it was not part of the curriculum. So when you take time now to go and educate yourself and try to find out these things, you'll come across this and look at how powerful this is. So if you come in Africa, especially in my country, and you go speak to the people who are in up country, you'll realize those who were teachers, because most of these credit unions back at home were started by teachers, they are actually living a better life than the CEOs. And that's a pointer towards where we're heading in the future, okay? So that's just some of the pointers I wanted to bring around what we talk about the right knowledge. So understand, like any other skill, you need to keep practicing. And the art of it is that learn from every experience, okay? So any person who really means to bring change to you needs to factor these 3 things. Now, unfortunately, all financial literacy outside there never addresses this point. And this is the most powerful one because it takes 80% of that. All right, so because of time, let's quickly now go back to these quotes that I started with. So the first one talks about as a man thinks, so is he. So in essence, what is in your subconscious mind is what you track, even when it comes to wealth. If you think other people know better for your future in terms of savings, you take the money to them. But like I've told you, most of these people are there for salary and their interest is not you first. Their interest is other institutions. And the way you counter this is by at least investing some small amount of money for yourself in getting the education, at least get the basic one, so that you make decisions based on an informed point of view. Number 2, insanity. That's what we've been doing in Africa. This is a quote by Albert Einstein. We've been just repeating the same process for 3 generations and nothing is changing. And just to see how sad it is, COVID came and took us by surprise. And we just sat there waiting for the Western countries to come up with vaccines.
Correct.
That is something that should really be, you know, for me, it's a disturbing case. Why don't we even have our universities at least trying to come up with something? So this tells you nothing is going to change, all right? Then number 3, I've talked about this a lot. Number 4, teach your child the way to go. And when he's old, he'll not depart. It's that first 7 years I was talking about. What you instill in the subconscious mind determines so much what happens in the future. And the power around this, what happens is, if let's assume what I observe in so many people around Africa is in December, we like a lot talking about resolutions. Next year, I'm going to lose weight. Next time, I'm going to start saving. So what you become blind to is you have this thing called the subconscious mind. And here you have your conscious mind. This is the 5%. So anytime you find yourself struggling with something that you really want, but you're struggling, The feedback, or what you need to understand today, is that the subconscious was programmed to go against what you want. Okay? So when you're at this point and you say you want to start working, what you're doing is you're trying to come and compete with this person. So the chances of you winning this will take time, obviously, okay? So what happens is, as you start now practicing, when you're going to the gym, what you're starting to do is you're starting to bring this thing down and you're starting to build this one up. But what happens is people get to a point and they say, this thing is not working, they give up. It's not that it's not working, it's because this subconscious it took years for it to be instilled there. So it's also going to take time, persistence, to actually replace it. And that's why they say when you're persistent in anything, eventually it pays off.
Right.
So as you bring this one down, this starts going up. And the beauty about this thing is once it's inside, it's just like the way you're learning to drive. It will become something you do without even thinking. Okay, that's the beauty around that one. So that's the pointer towards teach a child the way to go. And as an adult, he's not going to depart from it. Then this is the key thing. The human mind is the last great unexplored continent on earth, and it contains riches beyond our wildest dreams. It's the 80% I was talking about. If now you get to understand how the system controls you, not just in finances, but every other thing, is the reason why it's not exploded. Now today we just put on that light, okay? And therefore, when you change the way you look at things, then the things you're looking at will automatically change out of that. So the final slide for me will be this one, which is a very deep concept introduced by a guy called Robert Kiyosaki. It's called a cash flow quadrant. And cash flow quadrant basically means the 4 different areas where you can earn money genuinely, okay? So the top part is called E for employee, below is S for self-employed or sole proprietorship, B is for business, and I is for investments. Now the difference there's a big difference between the people who are on the left side and those who are on the right-hand side. I want you to ask yourself this question literally. If you chase a cat, what are the chances you're going to catch it?
No way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're smart enough, what will you do?
Trap it.
You'll try and figure ways of attracting it to you.
Yeah.
So you can purchase fish or milk, you place it on your feet and you just call kiri kiri and it will come to you. Now the people on the left side spend their years chasing that cat. That cat is money. You have been programmed to be chasing money. You have been programmed to be looking for money, to be chasing it. The people on the right-hand side are programmed, or they have programmed themselves to figure out ways of attracting that cat, attracting that money. So the people on the left-hand side work for money. The people on the right-hand side, money works for them. If you want financial freedom, financial peace, you should have at least one leg on the right-hand side, okay? So if it looks something like this, then ensure that as you start now, you have one leg here and another here. So when you're setting that asset, shift your mind from savings to assets. So if you're here, say, I'm going to pick one here, investments. And that's why I said when I started, I'm not going to be speaking about what most of you are thinking about. So I've just got the slide talking about the different types of investments you can do here. But I understand because of the lack of the things I've taken you through, causes a lot of problems to a lot of people. So as you continue doing this, you keep building up. So 1, 2, 3, you keep doing that and that. And eventually you'll realize freedom will naturally come by itself, okay?
Yes, yes.
That will be the end of my presentation for today. I wish I had more time.
Andrew,
that's
thank
my
you.
number on the screen. If there's anyone who'd like to get in touch with me.
Mecca.
Thank you.
Hey, this is.
I honestly would not want to interrupt this, but I just want to take like 2-3 minutes if you people will bear with me.
Yeah. Let me say this first, okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Anybody who is in a rush, okay, you're not doing yourself a favor. You have to think, spend the time, relax, and get this knowledge. If you have to go to bed to go chase a job that you are going to work for somebody, instead of trying to get this knowledge, I feel bad for you because you are still not understanding the concept. Take your time, understand what's going on. This is a more priority than anything else right now, obviously, except from your family. So if you're in a rush, you're in the wrong group, man. So please continue.
Andrew, thank you very much. You didn't speak to my mind. You spoke to my soul. You have done so much work, but I think you should let people also do some work after you have done your part. So when you tell these people about what you say, when you think and you say it, it will happen to you. What I want everybody to go get, anyone who cares about invest in yourself, as you really insisted, go read this book.
What is it called?
The Tongue, a Creative Force.
By the way, let me stop the recording first, please. Hold on.